Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
And just looking at you, I would never thought something like that would have happened to you.
Yeah.
I want you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Kimberly Janelle. I am a mom of two beautiful children. BJ is 23, just graduated from college in December. And I have a beautiful daughter, Corinne. She is 16. Cosmetology school. She is a junior in high school.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, like I said before, just looking at you, I would have never thought you would have tried to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Can you tell us your story? Go back as far as when you started feeling like that's what you wanted to do.
Man. Well, I think the stigma is that depressed people look a certain way.
Right.
Especially in church. So I'm a church girl, born and raised in church. My son's father was my high school sweetheart, but his family was the first family that I met that were Catholic. I'd never known black Catholics before, right? But he would come over to my church. My church back then was the hop-in church. Like, all the young people are at my church. So regardless of how he grew up, he was at my church because of me.
Okay.
And so when the marriage didn't work out, my son grew me up, not so much with him, right? So we kind of grew apart. But when the marriage didn't work out, my thought was, well, maybe it was because we didn't believe the same thing. Maybe if I had gotten a guy who was Baptist like me, who was raised like me, that it would be different. So I met my daughter's father. I'm going to save this piece of it. I'm going to save that piece of it. I met my daughter's I met their family. I met the brother first, right? He instantly became a brother to me. We worked at the same place, General Motors at the time, in Anderson. And because of our friendship, I started going to church with him, apostolic. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is different. This is different. But I felt a sense of connection that I had never felt before.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking, okay, this is probably it. This is what I was missing in regards to my spiritual life. And then there's conversations about this younger brother. And listening to the conversations then, I didn't know him. I hadn't met him, but I'm listening to the conversations that they were having, and it was just funny. But the conversations were conversations of things that he had done to previous girlfriends. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I wish somebody would. You know how we do, right?
Right.
Like, I wish somebody would try that with me. Or he would never. So I met him. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, I was smitten just by this, right?
But you didn't think about the things that he had done to other people?
It's that naivete.
Red flag that we don't look at.
Nope.
Don't pay attention to.
Nope. And that's what I think about, like, hindsight is 20/20, right? If that was the family joke at the time, like, what made me think that I was so different, that pattern would not be continued with me?
You're not the only person that thinks that. There's
No,
a
ma'am.
lot of women that think that.
Yeah.
And a lot of men too.
Yeah. And so, but this is what got me, okay? Met him, he was super sweet. He was sweet to my mom because I knew his family and his parents. I knew how they had raised them. He said to me, I got a call on my life. I know I'm supposed to preach just like my daddy and my brothers. I need a strong woman that can help me stay committed to what God told me to do. And so I thought, strong woman, sign me up. I got it. I got it, right? When you grow up in the church, and I grew up singing since I was, 6, 7 years old. That's one of the first things they do. And so my instant thought was, I went into fantasy mode. Right. Oh my God, he gonna preach, and I'm gonna sing before he preach, and I instantly went into that, and everything that they had joked about before was no longer in my mind. Yeah, no longer in my mind. So, in that instance, I've said it before that we have to take accountability for where we find ourselves in situations, and this is not to excuse him from the physical abuse that he displayed or acted out towards me. However, I knew who he was.
Yes, you were warned ahead of time.
I knew who he was,
but you chose to overlook
that. I absolutely did. Yes. I absolutely did.
And you, like I said, you're not the first person to do that, and you won't be the last.
I won't be the last. Yeah. And so we get into a relationship. We actually dated twice. The first time we dated was about 9 months. He was amazing, right? And I kind of had some desires to date other people. I went from relationship to relationship to relationship. So I broke it off, and I used the whole Jesus line. I think God would want us to be committed to him, and he fell for it. So dated some other people for a little while, and then he pops back up, right? And I'm thinking, this must be God, because I wasn't thinking about this man, nothing. And he had went back to, he's from Michigan. His family was from Michigan. He had went back to Michigan and was talking about coming back to Indiana. And I'm like, yeah, when you get here, let's talk. So he comes in town, and immediately we're like, right back at it. Except this time, everything was so expedited. Like, I want to marry you. And I'm like, okay, we got time. No, why we gotta wait? And I'm like, well, why we in a hurry?
Right.
Red flag. Red flag. I mean, so what you want? Either you want to be with me or you don't. I'm like, well, I do, but I just don't understand. Well, what we waiting? Red flag, yeah. Right? And I'm like, okay, what am I waiting on? I know him. We done this before. I know his family. Right. What I gotta wait for? Right. So we get married the week before Thanksgiving, and then maybe 3 weeks later, I find out I'm pregnant with my daughter. Okay, so it's like boom, 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 boom. But let me go back. We get married the week before Thanksgiving. I got a 6-year-old son, right? My parents take my son the night that we get married so we can have some time to ourselves. Mm-hmm. We argued the night that we got married for 3 hours about all the people that he didn't like now. My best friend, he didn't trust her. He didn't really trust my bonus mom. He didn't like this person. He didn't, so we going down the list.
This is the night
night we got married.
Oh
and to get through the arguing, I'm like, okay, then she just won't come over here. I'm checking people off the list just to get past arguing. Okay, I don't have to hang out with her. Okay, she don't have to come over here. All right, fine. Okay, whatever you want. The night we got married. Yeah.
We're going to take a break.
Yes.
And you just hold that thought. We're going to come right back.
So, find out I'm pregnant with my daughter. We've been married less than a month. That was in December. I was about 4 months pregnant the first time he hit me. And I was in such shock.
And you were pregnant, right?
Pregnant. Mm-hmm.
So, did he have any remorse or anything? Did he apologize?
No. Not at
all. So he felt like he was right in what he did.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Did you tell anyone?
And let me take that back. The first time he did not hit me, he choked me. He choked me until I almost blacked out, and then he let me go. Yeah. And so what would happen is we would get into an argument about something, and he would want my ring back, as if that ended the marriage or something. Like he would always want something. I refused to give him my ring, so he choked me until I almost blacked out. And so when I came to, and in my mind I'm thinking, I could have just, why didn't you just give him the ring? Immediately go to making concessions. Well, I could have just gave him the ring, right? What? Yeah. So now check this out. This is gonna mess you up. So we go. What our routine usually was, we would get into an argument. We would be physically violent, and then we end up at his parents' house. So I'm thinking, okay, they gonna say something. Like I've known these people for almost a year before I even met him. Okay. And at this time, his father is my pastor. Okay, so I'm like, oh, okay, we gonna go to the house. Boy, you know better.
Oh, so you told them?
Yeah, yes.
So, but going back to the beginning, when they were making jokes about him, did they talk about him abusing someone or just cheating on people?
Oh, listen, there were times where, let me first say, I am the first person. He had a daughter that was older. She's 10 or 11 at the time that I met him, with a black girl, and then it was white girls, and then it was me.
Okay.
So all the stuff that they were joking about was stuff that he had did with white girls. He had whipped her with a belt one time. He had put Nair in her shampoo. So she's in the shower washing her hair's falling out like by the handful. So I'm like, I wish.
Oh my God!
I wish somebody
would. The devil's son.
You know, stuff like that, and they laughing and joking about it. Another
That's
time,
not funny.
It's not funny. Another time, he had gotten drunk and he's outside of the apartment, cussing and hollering like, "Let me in!" So she calls the dad. And the dad and the two brothers go over and try and get him. They could not get him to get in his car. So the dad sees that there's a shovel laying in the yard. He picks the shovel up, pops him in the back of the head, knocks him out, and then tells his sons, "Let's go. Pick him up and let's go." And they are cracking up about this. I should have. There was nothing in me, me now, looking back at that, and I'm like, fool, why would you think?
Honey, I would have left right then and there, because if your parents are laughing about how you treat somebody, I don't even want to be in that environment.
But I dismissed it because of her color. I dismissed it because she was a white girl. I dismissed it because she was a white girl. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right, because that's what they let black men do to them. So then when I met him, and he was the complete opposite of who they said, and I was like, okay, maybe he changed. And then he got me with that line. I got a call in my life. I know that. And I'm like, okay, this is a different dude. This is a different dude. We can do this. Yeah. And when I dated him the first time, 8 or 9 months, he was exactly who he said he was supposed to be.
So he never put his hands on you then?
No. He was sweet to my mom. There were times where I needed to wash my hair. He's like, I'll wash it for you. So I'm bent over the sink, and he was amazing. He was amazing. So the second time when he came and said he was coming back to Indiana, and he was like, what are we waiting for? We know. And I'm like, you know what? I do know what this is, because he was amazing the first time. But that's how it always works. And so I just ignored the whole, well, we got to wait for, you know how you, or do you not feel that way about me, or what, I'm like, no, you right. You right. I was thinking that I was being hesitant because the first marriage failed. I didn't want to get a divorce the second time. But I'm like, no, I know him. I know I know how his parents raised him. It's okay. We good. We in church. And so I just, never should have.
See, and I think that's like one of the first mistakes that we made. We think because they're in church,
yes,
they're this perfect person.
Yes.
But that's not so.
No, ma'am.
No one is perfect.
No,
never
ma'am.
put someone on pedestal, because they will always fall down. And so we just need to see things for what it really is.
Absolutely.
No matter how much we are attracted to that person, We gotta love us first.
Come on. And if we're being true to what we know the church is the hospital. So it's gonna be some sick people there.
Exactly.
Right? And it's not to call people sick like in a perverted way, but if the church is the hospital, then you gotta know that everybody in there has a thing. Mm-hmm. Whatever the thing is, we stay connected to the church. We stay connected to God so that He can keep that thing either under subjection or keep us delivered from it. Right? And so in my mind, because I seen how his parents were and who they were and other situations and things like that, I all the red flags, all the and that's another thing we'll do. Maybe when this happens, then it'll be okay. Well, maybe he was just being like that because of this. It'll be okay. We do that. We absolutely do that.
Yeah, we do. We really do. And it's something that, the Women of Indy group, we did a segment where we talked about red flags. When you're dating someone, don't overlook those red flags. Because it's only going to get worse. If you see it now, later on down the road, it's just going to get worse.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's the thing that we have to love ourselves more to want better for us.
That's right.
And when you don't love yourself, you're going to get what you get.
Yeah.
You're going to get what you attract.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need to define, because I think that's such a cliche line. You need to love yourself. What does that mean? Because somebody might feel like, well, I do love myself. No, you need to love yourself and see yourself the way that God sees you.
Right.
Like, just as you are, no matter what you have been through or what you've done, like, you're perfect in the eyes of God. You don't need to change your nose, the shape of your butt, you know what I mean?
Because they need to accept you the way you are, because this is how God created you.
Come on. And so that was my problem.
Mm-hmm.
I did not see myself the way that God sees me, and so I needed that outer validation. And that's where I got that was the thermostat for my self-esteem. Mm-hmm. Other people. Man, you so smart. If other people said I was smart, I thought I was smart. If other people said I was beautiful, I thought that I was beautiful. If people weren't saying those things, I questioned whether I was or not.
And see, that's the thing that I was just talking to someone about. Stop saying people are beautiful if you really don't think it. Because it beats their head up, and as soon as someone tells you or mistreats you or don't want to be bothered with you, then you're like, well, why not? I'm beautiful. Everybody tells me I'm beautiful. Stop saying it. Be truthful. Mm-hmm. Don't try to build somebody's head up with lies. Mm-hmm. And another thing is, think about, would God want someone treating you like this?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then you don't need to be in that situation.
That's right. That's right. The very first time we went to his parents' house, because we were fighting, he's like, well, just take me to my parents' house. Okay, cool. Good. Because I'm going to tell him why we over here. And I'm thinking, okay, they going to get him. His mom said to me, you know what you need to do, right? And I just kind of looked at her. She said, you need to pray that devil on out your house. And his dad said, boy, I don't know what's wrong with you. You know better. That was the gist of the conversation. You know better.
But what did you expect them to say when they turned around and laughed at how he treated the other girls?
That was, I didn't even, still, at that time, I still did not connect that. Because he has showed me somebody different, right? So that did not come back into the forefront of my mind until he hit me. But by this time, I'm 4 or 5 months pregnant with this baby. This is my second marriage. I really don't want to be divorced again, right? And so I'm like, okay, what can I do so that this doesn't continue? Like, how can I get back to this guy who, for those 8 or 9 months, right?
He's gone.
He was never there. That was not. people can be who they need to be for however long they need to be
until they get you
until they get what they need, right?
Yep.
And so that during that time, and I didn't know it at the time, during that time, the 8 or 9 months, he had a case with the white girl that was it was at the state. Now, because things were so backlogged, this was an old case that was just it was their time to be, it was on the docket, and it was a domestic violence. She decided not to press charges, but you know the state automatically picks that stuff up.
Exactly.
And so it was time for, as he was talking to his attorney. Now, mind you, he's being so great to me that when he leaves, he's like, "Hey, I gotta go run and see my parents, or I gotta go." I'm like, "Cool." I'm not asking what y'all talking about. What y'all? So he's leaving my house and he's going to talk to his parents. They're going to talk to this girl to convince her not to show up, because if the state doesn't have a witness, then things fall.
They're enabling him
As a man of the cloth.
That's why you can't, like I said, you can't put him on a pedestal.
Listen.
Nope.
I didn't know any of that was happening the
what
first
made
time.
you decide to leave him?
I will say that the abuse, it started as physical, and when I say I've experienced everything with him, black eye, busted lip.
Really?
Oh yeah. We would be in the vehicle, and I would be driving, and he would reach over, and yank the steering wheel with the kids in the back seat, the whole nine, and then it went from that to verbal.
So did you ever reach out to anybody on your side of the family about this?
No, because we spent our wedding night arguing about who I was going to not talk to anymore.
Oh, so he was trying to alienate you from your family?
Immediately. It happened.
Oh,
it happened.
That's another sign when someone tries to do that.
Absolutely.
You know something is coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm trying to get to the good part of my wedding night. And so, unbeknownst to me, I'm giving him permission that night to cut these people off. Well, your bonus mom seemed a little still. Okay, listen, I just won't hang out with her. I'm saying whatever makes sense to me in the moment to just stop talking about it. And so I made oaths that night, not even realizing that that's what I was doing, by saying, okay, we won't hang out. Okay, I ain't gonna have her over here. Can we please? Okay, and so he just going down the list. Yeah, and so I was already, before we had even been married a week or so, I was already like.
So your mom didn't say anything?
My mom, now this is funny. My mom didn't really recognize that he had isolated me from everybody, because my mom lived with me at the time. So I hung out with my mom, and I worked so much.
Wait a minute. So your mom lived with you and your husband?
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't know any of that was going on?
No. Before we got married, she lived with me. Once I got married, she got her own place.
Oh, okay.
So she didn't see any of the, she did not see any of the violence. But she also saw that sweet side in him too. Like, she would come into the kitchen, he's washing my hair, and I got my arm around his waist. He's helping me cook in the kitchen. He's doing laundry. So she was bamboozled by him as well. Yep. And had no idea that, because of course when she called, I could talk to her. She could come over. He didn't have a problem with my mom. So she didn't see any of,
okay.
He didn't have a problem with my mom at all. He didn't like my dad. Did not like my dad, did not like my bonus mom.
So what did your dad think about it?
My dad, he didn't really get, because I kept him a secret. I kept him a secret.
Why?
You keep your business private. So I didn't really tell anybody we were dating. That my parents met. I'm trying to think when my dad met him.
And see, that's the thing. Everybody want to be so secretive. You need to let people know what's going on in case you come up missing.
Yes. Yes. My mom knew, because my mom lived there with me. But yeah, I feel like my dad met him maybe a few weeks before we got married.
And I feel like if maybe your dad got to know him like your mom, maybe he wouldn't have.
He would have picked it up.
Yeah.
He would have picked it up. not only would he have picked it up, but I think some of my friends would have picked it up too, because he's very clingy. Like wherever I was, he needed to be. You know, we moving around the house or whatever. And it just felt sweet. It felt attentive. It felt.
That one got on my nerves. I do not like clingy. No.
Yeah, it felt sweet.
Really?
But I need to say this. So when you are broken, when you have so many deficits and so many dings to your self-esteem,
yes,
that can feel like love.
Exactly.
It can feel like love.
Yes.
I'm like, man, this man, he can't get
really
enough of me.
me.
He can't get enough of me. Look at him. And he, you know, he was sweet about it, like, you know, and the smile on my back, and so it felt like love. But it was possessiveness. It was I didn't recognize it.
See, that's a
as
trigger
that.
for me.
It absolutely is now. Like, bro, what? No, I'm gonna go over here, and you, yeah.
Yeah, I have certain triggers, and I'm glad I do have certain triggers, because that stops me from even going further with someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The moment that I feel that, I'm like, yeah, hey, give me a minute. I'm gonna sit with that. So even bigger than that, what I realized is I had a problem with trusting myself. Trusting myself to make decisions. And when I was in that marriage, remember I told you what his mom said the very first time. I chased that devil out of my house, right? So my whole mission then was to figure out, okay, so what do I need to do to chase this devil out of my house? Because if you grew up in church, you know that Baptist is way different than apostolic,
yes,
right? They got a
definitely.
whole different set of rules and
Right.
way you're supposed to live. And so now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is it that y'all think I need to do to chase these demons and devils out of my house? Well, fasting and praying in tongues and, you know, all of these things. So I'm pregnant doing all the things to chase this devil out of my house, but it's still happening, okay? But what her conversation is not changing in what she's saying I need to be doing. So then it became, and she said this one time, honey, all that stuff going on in your house, I would question my relationship with God. So maybe God don't talk to me.
Maybe he's talking to you and you just don't hear him.
But what I realize now in my spiritual journey, God's voice sounds like my voice, right? When God puts somebody on your mind, like, hey, reach out to Tina, or it don't sound like, Denise, you need to reach out to Tina, right?
Right.
It sounds like your voice.
So you thinking, oh, that's just something I'm thinking.
That's not God talking to me. That's me. But I don't make good decisions, so I probably shouldn't do that.
He was talking to you.
He was talking to me, but it sounded like me, and when I'm not certain of me, then I don't do what he told me to do because it sounded like me.
And see, sometimes we have to ask God, let me know that it's from you.
But we got to trust it when it happens.
Yeah.
Because I remember a story in the Bible, and I forget who it was, but I remember specifically it was like, God, if that's you, then wet the mat that's outside the door and don't let the ground around the mat be wet. God did that. He was like, okay, well, God, if it's you, then wet the ground around the mat, but don't let the mat be wet. He did that. Like, we got to trust it when we ask God to show me that it's you, that when he show you,
you're going to believe
that
it.
you're going to believe it,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
And so I know, and I can't think of anything specifically right now, but I know that there were things that God showed me that was like, you need to leave, that I'm thinking more about how is it going to look if I'm divorced a second time.
You don't need to worry about how it's going to look
I
to other
don't now.
people. And I think that what the mom was really trying to tell you was, get him out. Not pray, but get him out.
I don't think, because the way, I wish that is what she was saying to me, but that was her baby boy. He was her youngest son.
But was this happening to the mother too?
See, that's a good question, because the parents had been married for, who, their oldest kid is probably in their 40s. They were married before they had kids, so they've probably been married well over 50 years. And when I listened to the history of, and this, the dad was telling me this, like he had a short temper.
The
like
dad
he
did?
Go, oh yeah.
Oh, he probably was doing
From
the same
0
thing.
to 100,
That's why
right?
she was telling you.
And so when I listened to who he used to be, and he would tell me, and this was even before I got married, met the son or anything, and we just listened, you know, talking or whatever. And he would tell me how much of a hothead he was, but I see no signs of that now. Like when I'm talking to them then, I'm like, man, he was so cool. Ain't no way he.
Where do you think
But
the
the
son
oldest
got
son,
it,
come
got
on,
it from?
come on. But the oldest son, had beat up his wife.
That was me. So that was going
The
down
middle
the line.
son, come on. The middle son that I met and befriended had never hit his wife, but he had grabbed her. Like in a moment of anger, he had grabbed her, and then he said that was the only time, Kim, I knew that I had to. And so I'm like,
And
okay.
see, she knew what you was going to go through, but didn't even warn you because she already done been through it. And that's what pisses me off. If you got a son and you know he beats on women, I'm not going to allow him to bring another woman in and do the same thing. I'm going to tell her what really is going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it and let you find out on your own.
Yeah.
No.
I wonder that sometimes because I do have, my son is 23, right? And I wonder now with him being at the age that he is, and he has a girlfriend, and he thinks she's the one, and you know, all of those things. I wonder, because I said the same thing, if that was my son, I wouldn't tell. But now that I'm sitting in a situation where my son is old enough to be making those type of lifelong decisions for himself, and he's not an abuser or anything like that. My son is, he's a great kid. He's kind of short patience with people. Like he gonna give you one chance and then he like, yeah, I'm done, right? I did tell his girlfriend that he need to be more patient. He gonna have to learn how to be more patient. But I wonder if my son was in a situation where he had a history like that, would I tell that girl? Like, how much would I tell that girl?
I would tell because
Would you?
It would be on my conscience to know what's going to happen to her. Because I wouldn't want someone doing my daughter like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't want it being done to somebody else's daughter.
Yeah.
And your son, did your son ever witness any of that?
Oh gosh, my son, which is part of the reason why my son is the way that he is, because he's seen so much.
But see, a lot of times when kids see that, they duplicate it because that's normal to them.
Yeah, he's seen. So he saw us getting put out. So we would fight in other areas of the house. There was one time I remember we were into it. Even the very first time he hit me, we were in the basement of that house. My son was upstairs, so he could hear us hollering. And then we would come upstairs, and he tried to put me out, which was crazy. But, so he would see him throwing stuff out the door, or one time I remember we got into an argument. It was after Christmas, because we had bought my son one of those handheld games. I remember. He took it from him. He's like, yeah, give me this back, and you go on over there with your mama. You go on, yeah. So he never saw him physically hit me. He heard us hollering and screaming and arguing. And so my son has a very short fuse for that. Like, you raise your voice at him, he won't talk to you no more. He don't want nothing to do with it. You know what I mean?
That's a trigger for him.
Yeah, he not it. So girls who like to argue and get loud, he not even fooling
good.
with you.
That's because he can walk away from that.
He absolutely will.
That's good.
And so my conversation to him in those situations are, you gotta let people, you teach people how to treat you, right? And so in an instance where you having a conversation with a young lady and she's getting upset and loud to explain herself, not necessarily coming at him,
right?
But in the moment of explain, he don't even like that. And I'm like, baby, you gotta give give her the opportunity, say, hey, I need you to lower your voice. That's
right, exactly.
And then if she can't do that in that moment, then maybe y'all need to table the conversation until y'all both calm enough. But I had to teach him how to do that. It's an instant trigger for him, and he will shut down, right? But I do.
Let's go back to where you said that you don't know if you would tell a girlfriend.
Yeah.
If your son was violent.
Yeah.
But
I would want to.
But you should, because you know what? If he gets violent with her, what if she shoots and kills him?
You're right. You're absolutely right.
What if she stabs him?
Yeah.
So she needs to know, so she can determine whether she's going to continue to be with him.
You're absolutely right.
Because I know you don't want your son dead.
Yeah. Yeah. It is,
it'll be hurtful. He'll probably be mad. But in the long run, it's going to benefit him.
Absolutely. And thankfully, let's just say this. Thankfully, it's not even anything I got to consider, right? Because my son is not, that's never been an issue that he's ever had with a girlfriend. And I've made it very clear.
And that's good, because you know what? Most men, most women that have grown up in that environment, to them, that's normal.
Yep. Well, thankfully, so here's the beautiful part about that. My son was with me when all of that started happening. My son, very early on in the marriage, when the fighting happened, he made it very clear he didn't want to be there anymore. So he was with me for maybe 6 months, and then he went and lived with his dad. So after that, there was a lot of stuff he did not witness because he was not in the house. And I had to convince him, like, baby, if you don't want to be here, mommy's feelings are not going to be hurt. I understand. You can go stay with daddy. I still love you, you know, because he didn't want to leave me, and he didn't want me upset with him, but he was sick of hearing the hollering and stuff. And so he got out pretty early.
At what point drove you to try to commit suicide?
Good question. Good question. So, when the abuse went from physical to verbal, he would say some of the most horrible things. Goodness. And so I remember just saying to him, I don't want to fight you. I said, what can I do to stop fighting with you? And he said, die.